Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to a player performance segment for the 2019-20 season. But the season now concludes, and we're running the rule over the individual displays that we've seen this year from individual players, and tonight it's the turn of Andre Gomes, Owen's favourite player. So it's great to have Owen on this show, and of course Terry as well. We'll start with you, Terry. How do you think Gomes has got on this season, or at least when he has been available?
It's a weird one, that really, isn't it? Because his season has been very much just informed by the injury. Straight, first and foremost, let's get it out the way. He got a horrendous looking injury in the game against Spurs at home. Was it November or December? November. Obviously looked really bad at the time. It was a dislocated ankle and fracture to some bones. And I think a lot of people thought he'll be out
for the season.
Yeah, well, I thought he'd be out until the latter part of next season because, broken legs, you don't come back quickly from them. And also, there was speaking for myself, there was some worry that he was going to get a little bit, might end up a bit like Seamus Coleman when he comes back from the injury and he's just lost that little bit of X factor. He's not quite the same player. Okay, Gomes was never a pace player, but he might, be a little bit more timid physically. And I think that has come to pass. He was never a tough tackling midfielder, but he was very strong and
he was forceful and he was aggressive, wasn't he? I don't think we've seen that since he come back.
Yeah, so at the beginning of the season, I think he was pretty much as he was the season before in terms of his own performance. He didn't play as well in terms of the team because along with everyone else, missed Idrissa Gueye.
Yeah, so precisely that.
Beginning of the season, he, when he was in the team, played one game with Jean-Philippe Gbamin. I keep saying
Jean-Philippe.
Yeah, I did that last episode. Jean-Philippe Gbamin, JP Gbamin.
Put some Jean-Paul Gbamin on after you have a shave.
Yeah, so he played one game with him at against Wolves. Played all right. He played one game alongside Tom Davies with the Iwobi ahead of them against West Ham.
That was probably his best showing.
Yeah, definitely. Davies and Gomes were highlighted that day on Match of the Day for being, a really effective partnership. Obviously, how those times have changed, change of formation and what have you, and change of form has made that seem a little bit silly now. But I think he was all right at the beginning of the season. He wasn't spectacular. I think he did really suffer from the loss of Idrissa Gueye. I don't think anyone was really, I don't think people realised quite how, much he was going to be missed, especially when his replacement got such a serious injury. And then in the second half of the season, when he came back from the injury, with the delay and Project Restart, he got back just before that, miracle turnaround for a recovery time. No one expected him to be back as quick as he was. He hasn't been the same since. He's not been as effective. He's not been as strong on the ball. He's had the odd flash here and there. There was, a couple of moments in the away game at Sheffield United. He hasn't been the same on the whole though since he came back from the injury. But I think that's to be expected, from my own opinion. I think he's been okay first half of the season, poor second half of the season, but you can't, for me, judge him on the second half of the season because the injury was such a bad one. Some players don't ever come back from breaks like that.
So, obviously, we've looked at we did a Seamus Coleman review very recently, and I was quite critical of Coleman. And I know a lot of that is maybe down to the injury that he's lost his edge. But so what can we expect from Gomes next season, do you think, with that in mind? Will he get back to the heights that he was at in his first season, or will he continue on a downward spiral like Coleman seems to have done?
I don't know, to be honest. I mean, Coleman lost a bit of pace. Now, he was never a pace player, but that loss of a bit of pace changed his game, whereas Gomes didn't really have any pace to speak of. And if he was to lose a bit, I still don't think it'd change his game dramatically, but he's lost that sort of bulk or strength or muscle where he
was very, very strong and aggressive, wasn't he?
He's still got ability, as passing wise, but when you say will he get back to it next season, he's got to, because right now I think not the common consensus, but a common consensus, because I know Owen won't agree, a common consensus is that he's still our best midfielder, but that won't last for long if the transfer plans come through. He can't, start next season slowly or poorly, because he'll be...
I think that's what we need to get to ourselves into a position for next season, bring in at least 2 centre mids and make it clear that even Andre Gomes, as like you say, is commonly considered to be the best midfielder, they can't coast.
No, he's lucky that the rest of the midfielders are as bad, if not worse, at the minute, because he's lucky that they're all terrible, because he hasn't been playing well. But I think going into next season, he probably will have the most stock, he'll have the most credit to his name, whereas the likes of Tom Davies and Sigurdsson won't. But if you bring in a midfielder, if JP Kabam gets back fit, Gomes will have to start, playing back to the ability, he'll have to start justifying his hype a little bit more to start regularly in the team, because he's now in a different formation, which, let's be honest, doesn't suit him.
It really hasn't suited him, has it? And I mean, we've got to touch on the fact that he was bought to be a part of a 4-2-3-1, and now he's playing for a manager who predominantly likes a 4-4-2. So that could well see, even if he does have a part to play, it could see him fall down the pecking order if we find more suitable players for our new formation in the transfer window.
Still a great passer. He still recycles the ball really well, but he can't just let people keep running past him. Like people are just gliding past him, and he won't get away with it in a 4-4-2. Now, he's never been, as I said before, a tough tackler, but he can, you know what I mean?
Stand up for himself more. He can hold his own better than he has done recently.
Yeah, he does. He needs to play more combatively. He doesn't suit a 4-4-2, but it doesn't mean he can never play in one. But he needs to adapt to it quickly, because he is just getting walked past in the centre midfield, and when there's only 2 of them in there rather than 3, it's going to get...
You can't have passengers. You cannot have passengers.
No, no matter who we bring in, they're not going to be this magic player who does the work of everyone, like everyone expects. Unless we sign N'Golo Kante, it's not going to happen.
Right, on to Owen, and I'm going to start by giving you a bit of bait to take here, because I think I've mentioned this one to you before, haven't I? Owen, the Watford statistic where Capoue, Doucouré and Will Hughes have all combined had less dribble passes than Andre Gomes.
Yeah, that's on the Luke on Twitter, isn't it?
I'm not entirely sure. Was it? I'm not sure, but Gomes has been dribbled past more than the combined midfield 3 of Watford, who have gone down, as we now know.
Yeah, just some context. If you think I don't rate Gomes, you want to read Luke tweets, he absolutely hates the bloke.
that L. Ken's the Watford fan.
Yeah, Luke McKenzie. Yeah. He really doesn't rate Gomes. In fact, he was on the bandwagon before I was.
Yeah, well, even a broken clock's right twice a day. That lad's an idiot.
Oh no, I mean that's where it's completely unrelated, but he's come up with some woeful shouts in the past, by the way. Well, but Gomes, look, I think if you put Gomes in a 4-3-3 and you just tell him to recycle the ball, he doesn't really affect the game much in the opposition half. I know he had a few assists towards the end. I think he had one against Villa, didn't he? And that might just be it, but he's definitely created more since we've come back. My issue with him is the other way, because in a 4-4-2, historically anyway, a 4-4-2 has always been more of a counter-attacking, out-of-possession type of formation, where you're looking to more like sit in and like counter-attack the opposition. And in order to do that, you need midfielders, and 2 of them, by the way, who can take the ball off the opposition and attack forward. Now, he's a good passer of the ball, and he could do that, but I just don't think he's defensively good enough in a 4-4-2 to be able to pull her off. You could say, well, in a way, defensively under Marco Silva, we were a 4-4-2, because Sigurdsson would go next to the striker out of the ball, and Gomes and Garner would sort of sit in as the midfield pivots. But this is a bit different, because when we do that now, it sometimes goes to like a 3 or 5 at the back when we do. So his role changes all the time within it, and I just don't think he's good enough to do so. As for how he's done this season, I think he started bad, and then I think he grew into the season until his injury, and then I think after we come back, he just hasn't been the same player at all. He did okay when he came on against Arsenal, if I remember right, because I think that was all on like adrenaline and what have you, that he's coming back, and he was head and shoulders the best midfielder on the pitch. But then every game since then, I think he's been pretty poor, except the Sheffield United game, which he did play well in. But I think that was a game where there's such an empty space in the midfield, because theirs weren't really doing much, and Tom Davis was pretty bad. So I just think with Gomez, he'll get another year, and if I was in charge, he probably wouldn't, because I look at him and think that he's never going to really suit the formation. But he's a talented player, and if shades of his Valencia days are back, then maybe he can do something. But I just worry about the fact that he isn't, and I'm not saying Sigurdsson's better than him, not, but when Sigurdsson was playing in Marco Silva's first year, he'd just get goals, and his excuse then was, I can't take him out, he's getting goals, even though he wouldn't do anything for 18 minutes in a game. With Gomez, he doesn't really do that. But I do understand why people like him, because I think if you think that period, when Marco Silva left, when Duncan came in, and Ancelotti's early, and the whole of Ancelotti's reign, we haven't really been a team that's kept the ball really well at times. We've always lost the ball, and we've gone a bit more direct. So I think people would rather Gomez stay in the team, because he's always looking to keep the ball nice. I know that was also a criticism that was laid at Schneiderlin, that it was just an easy pass. But I think Gomez is a bit more sophisticated than Schneiderlin, but it's more of the off-the-ball work that really does.
Yeah, it is frustrating sometimes with Gomez. I think it's that exact statistic that sums up Gomez's fatal flaws, is that he does get beaten too easily in the midfield, like when we're out of possession.
And
he's literally like a training cone, isn't he?
Yeah, and another thing that doesn't really work in his favour when that does happen, and I'm not. When Gomez plays, he doesn't look like he's working hard, and that's probably not an accurate reflection of his game. But he always looks like he's coasting through games. That might be a bit harsh, but he's not a blood and thunder player. He doesn't look like he gives everything, and that can sometimes be annoying. But
especially when the chips are down, like we've had a couple of bad results, it does look frustrating to see him standing there, like I say, like a training cone, and watching players just dribble around him.
Yeah, he's nice on the ball, but apart from that, I'm not really sure what he's good at. He was really good. You know, if we were playing Declan Rice every week, and he's been good lately, Declan Rice, but if we were playing against Declan Rice every week, I'd have Gomez in there every week, because he scores him every time he plays. But like I said, it's tough, because he's not the best off the ball, and I think we need midfielders who are good off the ball if we're going to carry out what we're planning to do with the 4-4-2.
Yeah, I think it's the interesting thing with Gomez. I think for me, moving forwards, would be, what would Gomez be like next season, even in a 4-4-2, if we brought in the right kind of ball winner that you're on about to play next to him?
Yeah, my issue with that though also would be he's not the most creative either. So we'll see. We'll see how he does next season. But I think he's got to deliver next season, or I don't think anyone in a year's time will be making excuses for him. My issue with the injury was bad, but I don't think he was necessarily Andres Iniesta before the injury either. I just think he was a tidy player, but again, he still had the same flaws as he has now. He just looks a bit, because of the formation change, he went straight manager pre and post injury, so I do feel for him in that, coming into a new manager system. Rustiness as well, but I just we'll see how he does next season. But I think that there's big question marks there. I'm not writing them off like I'm writing Bernard off, but I do think there's some serious questions.
So I think the jury's out, it seems, on Andre Gomes for next season, and Owen's fronting the jury.
Me and Luke McKenzie.
Well, hands across down to the Championship, get a Watford fan up to do the verdict.
Oh no, yeah. They've got a pretty decent midfield though with Caputo. I think he's a good player. So,
I'll be honest, they've gone down. I'd have a couple of their midfield.
I do look at them and think I don't know quite how they've gone down because I don't think they've got a bad team. But
Yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, Andre Gomes again. It's a case of looking to the future now and seeing what next season holds for him because it's going to be a crucial season for him. This will be the time where we'll expect him to find his feet again and hopefully see what he's really made of, regardless of what formation he's playing in. And like Owen says, it might be time to look at moving him on if he doesn't cut the mustard next season. But he'll definitely get the season to prove himself. He's levels above some of the other crap that we need to get rid of. So
no, I do look at the other midfielders we've got, notably Sigurdsson and like Davis, and I just don't think they've got any chance. I think he's got some chance, but he needs to improve a lot of areas in this game for adaptability. If Andre Gomes wasn't our player, there'd be no way we'd look to sign him because of the suitability to the system. We've got him, so we need to have a look at him.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Obviously, he signed last summer after the loan the first season. If it was after the loan this season, we probably wouldn't buy him.
No, probably not. But it is what it is. He did have a decent first season, and Silva did like him. I think I just feel that my issue is the way people think he's amazing, and he's not. I didn't have really an issue with him, but I looked at him and said, "Do we think he can do more?" And people suddenly thought he'd been perfect.
Yeah, and I know that Owen, one of your real pet hates in football is anyone who's overhyped.
Yeah, no, the people who are the darlings of football Twitter, and they're not really that good. But
so yeah, Owen's been waiting for quite some time for this segment so he could say his piece, and there you have it.
You know, people think I really dislike him or something. I just don't think he's really a good fit, but whatever.
You were like the first one in there though, vocally. It was like.
Yeah, he was the eyebrow raiser.
Yeah, I remember that was how I first noticed you on Twitter, though, and I was like, "Who's this fucking lad?" Like saying that Gomez is shite. Is he for real? And now, like over time, I've gone, "Oh,
he's kind of right, isn't he?"
He had a point.
No,
he was well ahead of the curve. I was just, he's not shite, but like you would, for me at least, you were definitely the first one I saw, like saying, "Yeah, we're all raving over this lad, and he's not that good." And I remember seeing it going. Nah, he doesn't know his onions, him. And now, as I've gone and gone, like, are we the baddies? Do I not know of the onions? What's going on here? Like,
Marco Silva still be here.
I've got a litany of terrible shouts, though. I had an argument with my mates. Well, when I first got to know my mate in work, he Everton fan, I was talking to him on a dinner, and I was saying. He was raving over Calvert-Lewin being like good. This was back like 3 years ago, and I was going, I don't see it. You know when he was playing on like the right and the left.
Yeah.
I said Adam Ola Luckman, he's the one. And I was now it's like I've looked back and go, even though some people don't like Calvert-Lewin, just think, yeah, I lost that one. That Calvert-Lewin
you'd rather have had more
of him. Yeah, Calvert-Lewin made much more of himself than Luckman did at Everton, and I remember walking away from him going. Hasn't got a clue, that lad, and I've come to realise it's me who hasn't got a clue. Let's be honest, time proves me wrong constantly.
Yeah, and you are on the show with me weekly, and we have these discussions.
Terrible, master of shite shouts, mate.
It's interesting though with Luckman though, isn't it, that he's never really worked out at Leipzig or anything.
No, I didn't rate him at all. To be honest, I just looked at him and I thought he's gone through the motions. But where I would say I was terribly wrong on Ronald Koeman. When he first came in, I thought, do you know what, he knows what he's doing, this fella. And then I think
we were all fooled by that.
Yeah, it's because it was so bad.
It was because if this isn't Martinez, this is good.
Yeah. No, that was probably me, to be honest, because I really didn't like him either. But I thought even up until like Limassol at Farmers and that would come up, I said, no, he'll turn it around. He just needs to strike it in January.
Oh, God.
Well, we're all guilty of it. At least we can admit it.
Right, and on that note, we're going to finish with our review with our totally, our knowledge is so good, we can give our ratings for Andre Gomes. Start with Owen. The critics are waiting to hear what you've got to say here, and what would you give him out of 10?
Before his injury, I'd give him a 6. Post-injury, I'd give him a 1. So somewhere in between that. So maybe, I don't know, a 3, a 4, 3 or 4.
3 or 4. Terry?
I'm going to go with a 6 with like a very, with an asterisk on it, because I know an asterisk that in vogue. Basically, because I am explaining away / excuse making for the poor form after the lockdown due to the bad injury. So I'm not counting that as heavily as I probably should, which even though as I'm saying that out loud, I'm thinking, you absolute shithouse, just give him a low mark. But no, I'm going for a 6 with an asterisk.
Yeah, well, you need to buy one of them, big silver 6s off St. John's Market, and take it to Finch Farm.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll give him a 4 because he was a solid 6.5, I thought, before the injury. Now, I literally think he's been probably as bad as Sigurdsson since the injury. So, one of them.
So it's a 4 and a 6, and I'm going right down the middle, as it always seems to be on these shows now. But I was planning on giving him a 5, and a 5 is what he's going to get from me anyway. And it does, yeah. There you go. So there you go, guys. Andre Gomes, bit of a mixed bag, very middle of the road season, and a very disjointed season for Andre Gomes. But let's hope for a bit better from him next season. Let us know what you think about Andre Gomes' season. Drop us a comment below. Give us your rating out of 10 as well. Give this video a like and subscribe as well for more content. And until next time, thank you for tuning in on the Toffee Blues.